Wait. Go back. Did you see that one guy right there? Look at that guy. That guy's smiling. That dude's serious. That dude right there, he looks like he wants to fucking kill himself. He's like, dude, I'm going to Ukraine after this, buddy. I'm not excited. This doesn't feel victorious at all. Look at him. Dude, oh my god. Okay. We're done. Okay, we're done messing around. Let's get to the real reason we're here. And that's because everybody was quite concerned. Actually, the United Kingdom's Defense Secretary, Ben Wallace, even said that he thought that Victory Day would be the day that Russia announces general mobilization, which would mean that they could turn certain production lines towards the military and the economy, and they would be able to mobilize the reserves. Now, let me be clear. The reserves of Russia are not highly trained elite forces. In fact, they're not even necessarily competently trained forces. It would take a lot of time to train them properly, and those troops still need equipment, and they still need decent supply lines. And due to the recent reports we've gotten from the United States government and others, one second, where is it? Like this, for example, number one, the Russian army won't advance ahead of artillery fire. Number two, they're stuck on paved roads because of the spring mud. Number three, the Russian army still hasn't fixed logistics in the Donbass. And number four, some of the Russian troops are just plain not following orders. General mobilization would not fix any of these issues. In fact, adding more troops might make the logistical issues worse. Definitely if you're adding more troops, only for those troops to not be properly trained, right? So general mobilization doesn't just fix all of Russia's problems at this point whatsoever. So it would still allow this conflict to probably drag out longer. It would mean that they could turn the economy more towards war, since they're definitely facing shortages when it comes to modern equipment, modern missile systems, when it comes to, due in large part to the sanctions. Anyway, all that aside, many people thought that today would be the day general mobilization is announced, or we'd get something else. In fact, Ben Wallace, the United Kingdom's Defense Secretary, predicted that. And so that's why everybody was waiting with anticipation for this day. This speech, depending on what Putin said, determines for me whether I end up going or not going into Ukraine. Now, let's sit down and listen to this speech, because apparently it was kind of depressing. This is supposed to be the big day. This is the thing everybody anticipated. This is the day that Putin could take hold of and maybe get the war back on track as the Russians get pushed back from Kharkiv across the Russian border. And the Donbass gets bogged down. Let's listen.
Dear citizens of Russian Federation, dear veterans, dear soldiers, Marines, sergeants, dear officers, generals and admirals. Congratulations on the great victory. Defense of our country is a sacred thing. It always has been. These feelings of the patriotism were important. They were used in Borodino fighting, when there was fighting in Kiev and Minsk, Stalingrad, Kursk, Kharkiv. And now, during these days, you are fighting for our people in Donbass, for the security of our country, Russia. 9th of May 1945 became a day of triumph, and it became a history.
Okay, so he's not going to completely avoid the war. He is going to talk about the war. He's already mentioned it. Let's see how in-depth he gets. Let's be clear. The Moskva's been sunk. They were unable to take Kiev. They failed to take Cherniv. They failed to take Sumy. We've now found out that they've basically, now it's basically official, they failed to take Kharkiv. The second phase of the war, they failed to take Odessa. The second phase of the war is failing in the Donbass. They've lost probably over 20,000 sons of Russia to death at the hand of Ukrainian rifles. They've had faced multiple military issues when it comes to logistics and troops not following orders and generals getting killed because they had to command from the front due to communication issues and a million different things. So I gotta see the theme he goes for. Does he just pretend everything's okay? Does he just march on forward? Does he give a new command? Like I'm sorry, I'm just very curious.
The unity of our Soviet people and
That is the head of the Russian Orthodox Church right there.
the brave actions on the front line and in the back. There is no family in this country that hasn't got somebody who took part in the war. Children and grandchildren are carrying the pictures of their family members who died. We are proud for this generation. We are proud to be their people. We follow their advice, and they told us to do everything to stop the horror of the global war so that it doesn't happen again. In the international relations, Russia always was for this system of equality. In December last year, we suggested to have a security agreement. Russia urged Europe to find a fair compromise, including interests of everyone, but that was in vain. They didn't want to hear us, and that means
Guys, thank you so much for the $10 donation. What he's talking about is when the Russian government said, hey, we're just doing training operations, don't worry. Then out of nowhere, after they've gathered over 200,000 soldiers on the Ukrainian border, they started making demands to European officials. Some of the demands included non-starters, like, hey, stop guaranteeing Eastern European countries with nuclear weapons. Basically saying that, make it so if I invade Poland, you're not going to use nukes. These are non-starters. No one would agree to that. Could you imagine Vladimir Putin agreeing to us saying, hey, if we invade Belarus, don't use nukes? Of course not. He's not going to agree to that. Why would he agree to that? It was just multiple non-starters. He didn't give like a fair proposal. Not to mention, it was all based upon the foundation of a lie that it was all training operations and not putting troops on the border of Russia, on the border of Ukraine, so they could invade Ukraine, right? So no, it wasn't fair and balanced and equality, right? If there's anybody who can't be talking about equality as a system of governance, it is Vladimir Putin, oligarch.
they had completely different plans, and we can see that. They were preparing a punishing operation in Donbass to intrude on our historic land.
Okay, so this is another lie, and I'm sorry, like I've heard this so many times, so I got to talk about it. One of the lies that the Russian government has used to try to build a casus belli is the idea that it was Ukraine, not Russia, that was preparing an invasion, right? Now, it's ridiculous considering that it was the Russians who gathered the hundreds of thousands of troops. It was the Russians that put their troops in a position to invade. It was the Russians who put medical supplies, blood, for giving it to Russian troops in case they get shot, all the stuff necessary, munitions, battle plans, everything in place, ready to invade, right? Not only around the Ukrainian-Russian border, but around the Ukrainian-Belarusian border as well. It was the Russians who did that at every stage. And somehow, right at that time, the Russians uncovered a plan that the Ukrainians decided or was going to invade the Donbass that the Russians funded separatists to separate from Ukraine in. They were going to wait until the Russians were on their border with all of their troops to invade and take the Donbass. That magically, right when Russia had all of their troops on the border with Ukraine, ready to invade, that was the moment that the Ukrainians chose to launch an invasion of the Donbass. You know, this happens a lot historically. In fact, did you know actually Poland attacked Germany before Germany invaded. At least that's what the Germans say, that they had plans to invade Germany and attack Germany. Every nation that wants to invade and annex territory, do regime change, do whatever, a lot of times they'll create like a false situation, a false plan of action that the enemy was going to take. They'll do a false flag attack. One example of this was there was a false flag where a Russian jet attacked Belarus, and they said it was the Ukrainians. There have been multiple false flag attacks, like in one instance when they said Ukrainian troops marched into Russia. Again, why would Ukrainian troops wait until the Russians were on their border to march into Russia? It doesn't make any sense. But this is the lie that Putin's putting forward, because it would be very difficult to explain to your people why you invaded Ukraine, the so-called brother nation, if they weren't doing anything to you or they had no plans to invade.
If they were saying that they might get nuclear weapons, and NATO started exploring the lands close to us.
Okay, Ukraine was not going to get nuclear weapons. They weren't. The comment he's talking about was that Zelensky was talking about the Budapest Memorandum. The Budapest Memorandum was an agreement that Ukraine signed, and so did Russia, so did America, so did other countries, that basically said that all these countries would respect Ukraine's borders, not invade, not take their territory, if Ukraine agreed to give up its nuclear weapons, which is an agreement that Russia agreed to and broke when they took Crimea, and broke when they invaded the Donbass and funded rebels, and broke a few months ago on February 24th when they invaded Ukraine once again, right? And what Zelensky was saying is, why basically did we sign this memorandum? Why did we agree to this when right now nuclear weapons would be very, very useful to Ukraine, because no one would be invading Ukraine if, we had nuclear weapons, which I think is actually a sensible statement that, hey, you agreed you wouldn't invade us if we gave up our nukes. Then you invaded us multiple times from multiple angles, and you're doing it again. It seems that Ukraine was right, but Ukraine was no closer to getting nuclear weapons now than they have ever since they've given up their nuclear weapons. And also, when it comes to NATO membership, Ukraine was no closer to joining NATO now than they have been since the start of the Russian invasion in 2014, when it came to the Donbass or the annexation of Crimea. Because if you have a territorial dispute with another country, or you're engaged in some active war with another country with your territory, you can't join NATO, because NATO doesn't want to get dragged into that war. And so again, Ukraine was no closer to getting nuclear weapons, which it's not going to get anyway, or joining NATO than it was since the start of the invasion. So there was, again, no reason for Vladimir Putin to invade based upon what he's saying whatsoever.
And that became an obvious threat to our country and to our borders. Everything was telling us that there is a need to fight with banderovцы and fascists. I will repeat, we saw how they start and develop military infrastructure. There were constant supplies of the most modern military equipment. The danger was growing every...
So, when it comes to the constant supply of military equipment, we are now giving Ukraine more military equipment than ever because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I mean, $33 billion of aid, $20 billion of it going to the military aid. That's just from the United States in one aid package. That's on top of the land lease program that was signed in the same day of this speech, on top of the already billions of dollars that America's already given, on top of the billions of dollars all the other countries are given, all the weapons everybody else is given, when it comes to Panzerfausts, artillery, howitzers, armored vehicles. Poland has given a lot of tanks. When it comes to military aircraft parts, Turkey, when it comes to, the TB2 Bayraktar drones, the Javelins, the NLAWs, all of this stuff, the ammunition, the tourniquets, all this stuff flowed in more massive amounts since the invasion started. and started to flow in higher amounts once Russia was taking an aggressive position towards Ukraine by piling up 200,000 troops on the border. If Putin's concern was Ukraine getting modern military weapons, he has done nothing but sped up that process with this invasion. Now, there is some truth to what he's saying here, and the truth lies in this, that when it comes to Russia in doing a general invasion of Ukraine, the clock kind of was ticking, right? Because every single year Ukraine had, they continued to improve the military standards. They continued to slowly, a lot faster now, but slowly get more weapons because they were gathering up weapons in case Russia invaded, right? They slowly were building up to NATO standards because America was assisting in training operations. And I know, for example, I interviewed one Canadian sniper that was training Ukrainians who is of Ukrainian descent. So, from a Russian perspective, as the Ukrainian military continues to improve, as the Ukrainian economy continues to improve, and like from a Russian perspective, like if we want to subjugate Ukraine, we have to do it now before they're too strong to resist us, right? Like if you want to go assault somebody, assault them when they're not armed before they get armed. And so there is a truth in the strategy of invading now. It's just the difference. The problem was apparently Ukraine was already pretty prepared. And this isn't a moral justification. This is just like him saying we have to invade now because they were getting stronger, which is technically true. But again, all he's done is flood more weapons into the country.
Every day, and Russia.
Bobby Duke, thank you, gifting 5 tier 1 subs. I will be sure to smuggle more javelins into Ukraine now. Thank you so much.
That was the only decision and the right decision of an independent, sovereign, strong country. The United States of America, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, started talking about their unique nature, diminishing people. But we are a different country. Russia has got a different character. We will never refuse our love and respect for the traditions and respect of traditions of all the cultures. The degradation of morality of the West and also denying the bravery of those who worked hard to earn the victory. We know.
Okay, so he's talking about Russia respects traditions and the West is degrading in its morality. And if you heard about his recent speeches where he mentioned J.K. Rowling, basically what Putin's saying here is that the West is woke, Russia red pill. The West is gay and trans and queer and SJW. Russia red pilled. Our traditions are based and so cool, while the West's morality is going down the drain. Who is this yelling towards? This is yelling towards his domestic population, basically saying, we are fighting against the West, and who knows, if they win, maybe your kids will be gay or trans, and etc., and the West is going downhill, and it's bad, and it's gross, and it's disgusting, and ew. And this could also be yelling to an American audience, to a audience all across Europe that might be thinking, actually, I do agree with you. These gays are out of line. These trans people, what's a trans? They don't even know what a boy and a girl is anymore. This stuff's ridiculous. This degradation of morality that we see happening in the West, right? I think this is terrible. I mean, what happened to a woman's place? You know, that, right? That is the argument he's basically making. That the West used to be red-pilled. Now they're no longer red-pilled, and we're the red-pilled ones, and these differences in values are also on the front line of this conflict. And so, I mean, this is pretty clear, right? So yeah, for all the fellow queer people in chat, Congratulations for helping me degrade the West. Personally, I think the Western value of, letting gay people, letting queer people, letting trans people, in many instances, I don't think it's far enough, largely live their lives and like be who they want to be. I think that's super awesome. And also, when it comes to like the based and red-pilled Russian traditions, where did fentanyl originate? Fentanyl isn't from Los Angeles. It isn't from MS-13. It isn't from South America. It isn't from Africa. It isn't from Chicago. Fentanyl originated in Russia. The stuff that turns your skin into scales, that drug. It's so poisonous. Honestly, Google fentanyl if you're fine seeing some weird messed up stuff, and just look at the people's skin. It turns it into leather. It looks like alligator skin, right? And also look into the Russian drug crisis, because the based red-pilled approach in Russia, having some of the harshest drug policies in the war, fighting one of the harshest drug wars in the world, has not worked. It has failed. Russia has a very high drug-using population and a very high specifically injecting drug-using population. And you want to know what? That based in red-pilled Russia, that red pill, okay, that they're consuming is killing their people, because that red pill is narcotics, is drugs, and they're taking it, then spazzing out on the floor and dying because they overdosed. Okay, that's the Russian red pill. Okay, if you take too many, you die, and that seems to be happening a lot in Russia. That based approach didn't work. Okay, that traditional approach of just sweat it out, just ban it all, it doesn't work. And as Americans, we know that the drug war doesn't work. But, there's the based in Russian red pill approach that's working so much better than the Western SJW approach, okay? Yeah, I'm in favor of needle exchange programs. I think it's been proven statistically to work better. If your main concern is saving lives, yeah, it's been proven to work better.
We are proud of what you've done, your contribution to the victory. Americans, British, French, brave soldiers who contributed to destroying Nazism. Today, Donbass fighters and soldiers of Russia are fighting on their own land, where we had soldiers of Remantsev and Potemkin, where the heroes of the Great Patriotic War, Vatutin, Sidor Kovpak, Lyudmila Pavlichenko, were fighting. Today, I want to address our armed forces and Donbass fighters. You're fighting for the victory of your land, so that nobody forgets the lessons of the Second World War. Today, we respect the memory of those who died during the Second World War.
Wouldn't the lesson of the Second World War be, oh my God, war is terrible. If we can, we should avoid it. We should let countries run themselves and not fight wars of conquest and hatred and those would be some of the lessons I would take away. It wouldn't be, oh, you want to join the EU? You don't want to subjugate to me? Okay, brother country coming in with some brotherly love. Yeah, I mean, that's not exactly the lesson I would take away.
To commemorate those who were fathers, mothers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends. We respect those who died in Odessa, in the house in Odessa in 2014. We also commemorate the memory of those who died because of the neo-Nazis and those who were fighting for Russia. We announce a minute of silence.
Look, I'm gonna be completely honest, man. Like, at the end of the day, the
If
reason
you're
these
just
people are...
joining us,
Oh,
this
snap!
is
I
the-
was thinking, like, I don't care if it's a moment of silence. And the British commentators talk over the moment of silence, too. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. The thing is, that gets me about this, right, is he's the one who sent them to their deaths, right? He didn't need to invade Ukraine, okay? He didn't need to invade Ukraine. He didn't need to kill all these people. And he's talking about all these terrible war crimes when right now he's denying the war crimes that happened in Bucha. Right now he's denying the war crimes. Literally, just like 10 hours ago, a church was bombed in the Donbass and killed 60 civilians because civilians were using it to shelter from airstrikes. And he's going to come up here and like pretend to care about war crimes, to pretend to care about like the far right killing people, even though when the Wagner group and other and far right militias were fighting on the side of the Donbass rebels 2014 all the way up to today, didn't care about them whatsoever, right? Those are the inconvenient Nazis, the inconvenient fascists, the inconvenient far right. Same, man. Moment of silence for the people I killed. Yeah.
military parade, the victory parade in Moscow, live, a minute's silence called for by President Putin for the Russians who've lost their lives not only in the Great Patriotic War, as the Second World War is known there, the 20 million plus Russians, but also the soldiers who have lost their lives fighting for their country in the Donbass, as he put it, the sovereign country belonging to Russia. This parade, slightly smaller than the one last year, about a third the size, we understand, some 11,000 troops, 77 aircraft we're anticipating, military vehicles as well. Our security correspondent Frank Gardner is alongside me, who I'll bring in a moment, actually, because President Putin now addressing the crowds there and indeed Russians across state media. Let's just listen in again.
Companies, enterprises and public organizations will do everything to help those families, to provide special assistance to children of those who were wounded or who lost their lives. And I signed a decree about this. I wish speedy recovery to those who were wounded. I want to thank medical staff working in hospitals for their hard work, and those who are trying to save every single.
To be clear, the Russian army has targeted hospitals in Ukraine. This isn't the first time they've targeted hospitals. In fact, in Syria, the Russian army targeted a hospital with missiles that ended up killing civilians, posted footage of it on Twitter to brag about the effectiveness of their missile systems to Armenia. They've also targeted maternity wards in Ukraine and hospitals in Ukraine. So gotta be honest, Putin thanking hospital staff kind of rings hollow for me. I mean, it feels a little tone deaf, to be blunt.
Single life without sparing theirs. Dear comrades, today, here and now, in the Red Square, shoulder to shoulder, soldiers and officers are standing from many different regions of our country, including those who came right from Donbass, directly from the war zone. We remember how...
Dude, like I said earlier, what I do when I watch old World War II marches or marches from any country, right, is I think about how many people in that footage died in the war. I particularly think about that for countries who lose wars, because they are the countries that usually, lose the most people. And I'm thinking about that because this march was today. How many people in this frame are going to be dead by year's end because they were sent into the Donbass meat grinder? And it's a really sad thing to think about, really, because again, like, all these people have families, right? And because of Putin's and his government and the people who support him, because of their negligence, because of their arrogance, because of their extreme chauvinism when it comes to their country's mindset and how they view foreign policy, foreign policy, they're going to send a lot of these young boys to die in a war that they've been lied to about.
The enemies of Russia were trying to use the gangs of international terrorists, trying to put the seeds of religious hatred. They didn't succeed. Today, the fighters of different nationalities are fighting together, covering each other from the shrapnels. And that shows that we are united. Today you are defending what your fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers were fighting for, who saw security of their country as their priority. This is the biggest value that Russia relies on. Those who fought Nazis showed us their bravery. This was the generation of victorious troops. Glory to our armed forces. Hooray to Russia.
And there you go. That is the Putin speech. So now they're gonna, fire off blanks. Who knows where we'll see that artillery next, because they're running out of it. So really, honestly, this speech is crazy to me, because today was supposed to be like a massive day when it comes to Russia's foreign policy. And I mean that. It was supposed to be a massive day. It was supposed to be the day, for example, again, Defense Secretary Ben Wallace, the Defense Secretary for the United Kingdom, said that he expected Vladimir Putin to announce general mobilization today, where that means they could take factories and turn them into military factories, and they could mobilize the reserves, even though the reserves would be poorly trained, probably poorly equipped, and they would probably need a lot more training if they were going to be very effective, and this wouldn't solve the logistical issues that the Russian military is facing. It wouldn't fix the issue of Russian soldiers not following the orders of their commanders. It doesn't deal with the mud and the fact that the Russian military has to stay on general paved roads, which is affecting them due to mud season. It doesn't deal with a lot of the issues, the morale issues that the Russian military has been facing for soldiers to go into the Donbass, and that certainly isn't going to be helped by throwing less experienced soldiers in there, right? And the VDV and other soldiers have faced massive casualties. It's not going to be helped, right? And so, looking at this from a perspective of what we all expected, even if we didn't get, we didn't get, let's go back to the footage we were just looking at. I want to go back. I just want to play marching footage. We want something in the background. Even if we didn't get, we didn't get like full mobilization, we were expecting something, right? We're expecting something from the Russians today. We're expecting some statement from Putin about, like, here's what we're going to do to win. We were expecting, like, well, here's the policy change I'm going to take in order to win us the war. This is what we're going to do in order to beat the West. And here's what I'm going to do for the economy. Here's what I'm going to do for the military. Here's what I'm going to do for the army, the Air Force, the Navy. The sinking of the Moskva was tragic, but you know what? This is the new plan I have. Nothing. There was nothing really new announced. There was no new things of, like, we're going to double down on production of weapons. These sanctions will not crush us. We actually now know we can produce more modern weapons because of this, because the sanctions have affected Russia's ability to produce a lot of modern weaponry, definitely when it comes to missiles. Just nothing. I mean, it's wild, because we all anticipated this day, We all anticipated something from the Russians, if not general mobilization, some statement of, here's our plans for the future of Ukraine, for the south of the country, for the Donbass, for Kherson, for Kharkiv, but the Russian army is now being pushed back from Kharkiv over the Russian border, it seems. So it seems that the Ukrainians have won that battle as well. This is what we're going to do here and there, and we're going to shape up command in this way. Nothing. This was just a mere rally around the flag moment. A let's beat our chest. And it was, I mean, kind of pitiful in comparison to other times that they've held a march like this. You would think they would want to increase the size of an event like this with a war going on, but it's actually 1/3 the size of previous marches due to the fact that a lot of the troops and a lot of the equipment that they usually show off is at the front. It's in Donbass, getting blown up by TB2 Bayraktar drones. So isn't that interesting? That there's really nothing here? And I gotta say, I think Putin doesn't really have any cards up his sleeve. I mean, if he did, I mean, now would be the time to pull out the card, right? I don't think he has some grand new plan that's going to see them to the end of the war. I don't think they have some new economic policy that's going to keep the war industry in line. I think Putin weighed that full mobilization of Russia would be a huge political risk, because if they face failure in Russia after a formal declaration of war and full mobilization, if they face failure in Ukraine then, and they don't take all of Ukraine, that's going to be a huge, like, broken nose. Not bloodied nose, broken nose for the Putin administration. I don't think his administration would be able to survive such a political crisis. Hell, I mean, there's questions if it would be able to survive failing the special military operation. At least, maybe during the special military operation, they could say, well, we took Mariupol. They haven't taken it yet. The Azov steel plant's still holding. But we took Mariupol, so we destroyed the center of Nazism, so we can leave now. They can paint it in some other way. But there's really nothing came of this. And so I remember saying, like, May 9th will decide whether I go into the country or not. Because if they expand the war massively and just try to destroy the whole country with carpet bombing and etc. and this and that, then I won't be able to go in most likely, but that doesn't seem to be the case. I really expected much more, and we got nothing. And I think that might be because Putin has nothing. No cards up his sleeve, no new announcements, no new plans. I don't think he's got anything. I think that he's put all of his eggs in the Donbass basket, is trying to scrape up as many troops as he can with the special military operation and throwing it into the Donbass, hoping for the best. And I gotta say, his prospects right now don't look very good. They've taken maybe a few miles in the Donbass. They've got a ton of logistical issues, morale issues. Russian troops aren't following orders. They're losing tons of troops, losing tons of equipment. They just, there's a problem with the Izium supply line, and it might get flanked soon due to the Ukrainians pushing them back from Kharkiv. I mean, every single day the Russian economy loses $20 billion. I mean, that right there on screen is not the face of a secure man who's got all of his ducks in a row. That is a man who is holding on to the table, just hoping things kind of figure itself out, man. My God.